keep it live, cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Thanks for coming back and joining us again for this broadcast. You know, we do the Anti-Media Radio 5 days a week here on UCY.tv. Huge shout out to Jules and UCY for hosting us and making this whole thing possible for us to come up here and, you know, use this radio channel as a soapbox to air our grievances with this corporatist empire. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, so many people have so many different words for it. Some people call it capitalism, some people call it fascism, some people call it socialism, some people call it oligarchy, corptocracy. I know Jake thinks that maybe the more accurate term for it. You know, corporate empire, you name it, dude. There's like a lot of ways to describe what's going on right now, but I can tell you this, a lot of it isn't good, and a lot of it needs to be exposed. And the first step that we need to take in solving our problems is first identifying them, and then, you know, airing them out, letting people know, look, there's a problem here. Because here's the thing, in the United States, there's a huge percentage of people in this country who think there's nothing wrong. They think everything's fine. They don't realize the depth of structural issues going on in this country. And you know, we'll talk a little bit about some of the news today that has some very deep impacts on what's going on. One of them, it has to do with the Federal Reserve, which was, of course, overshadowed by a lot of other celebrity gossip nonsense. You know, Trump and his tax returns, and Snoop Dogg beefing with Donald Trump, who, by the way, I take Snoop Dogg's side of the beef. Who in the hell would go against Snoop Dogg? Anyway, the Federal Reserve announced today that it's going to be raising interest rates because, you know, the market is overheated. Anybody can see that. Anybody can see the market is overheated. Go look at the stock market. Look how much it's gone up in the past, like, several years. It's been overheating for years now because the central bank, the Federal Reserve, has had interest rates at basically zero for a very long time. These policies date back to the 2008 2009 financial crisis, the bailouts and all that stuff. We've been in bailout mode of Wall Street since 2008. And so and this was a huge complaint under Obama. It's like, oh yeah, the economy has gotten better. The economy's gotten better. The economy's gotten better. And everyone that has the working class people are like, wait, what the hell are you guys talking about? My economy hasn't gotten any better. I'm working more hours for maybe a slight increase in pay, but that pay doesn't go nearly as far as it used to. So in actuality, you may be making more hourly. And this also kind of goes back to the minimum wage debate and stuff. But that the more money you make, it doesn't go as far as it used to go, and that has to do with inflation and stuff. And so this is big news today with the Federal Reserve, that it really has gone overshadowed by a bunch of other crap. But anyway, that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And I know my longtime co-host DB Schwartz, who's joining us tonight, has plenty of opinions on the Federal Reserve and interest rates and whatever you want to call this perpetual bailout that's been going on of the banking industry in Wall Street, and also by
QE5.
Yeah, QE infinity. Because this is also let's not forget, this is also a bailout of the government, because by creating this bubble that makes it seem like the economy is doing good, it also relieves pressure from anybody, like the Occupy Wall Street type of people who are looking to hold the banking class kind of accountable, the Bernie Sanders supporting type of people, so all these bailouts and stuff also bail out the government because it makes them look like they're doing good, and it relieves criticism from them as well. It's a big mess, and it's so big. I hope people who listen to our show at least have been listening and understanding what's been going on here. I mean, this is a huge.
All that happened, Nick, with this last election was the last 5 or 6 regimes after JFK. I guess you don't consider Carter one of those for whatever reason. He was kind of like a Bernie Sanders, but 5 or 6 regimes have been in the banker pocket, and the bankers wanted a world where they didn't have governments or country lines where they could just pilfer and profit at will across the globe and have a one world army that would basically dictate their terms. And what has happened is that you have a guy coming in that's just pure military, and it's a crazy notion to be back at that. We haven't had that since Eisenhower.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that I think we've been talking about this for a while here, that Trump has definitely shown to have come from the military wing of the government. Now, that being said, headline right now on the antimedia.org, it is, let's see, where is this place at? Second headline down on their news. Donald Trump isn't even pretending to oppose Goldman Sachs anymore. This is from The Intercept. And, just today, Donald Trump added another Goldman Sachs person to the number 2 spot at the Treasury under Steve Mnuchin, which is also a former Goldman Sachs person. So basically, the Treasury is now being run by Goldman Sachs once again. This is what Obama did. This is what Bush did. This is what apparently all presidents have to do nowadays, is put Goldman Sachs in charge of the Treasury. And so if Trump if Trump was at odds with the banking establishment when he came into office, I don't think that those differences are so great anymore, because now, Goldman Sachs is making up a big part of his government, of his cabinet, and so I think this is a very interesting, phenomenon going on. Now, does this have something to do with how the CIA has been trying to put Donald Trump in check? Does this have something to do with how the deep state has been trying to manipulate the Trump administration? Jake Anderson is joining us now, amazing journalist with the Anti-Media. Jake, what do you think about all this? Do you think that Trump is making his peace with the banking establishment now at this point?
Yeah, I don't think that a president could come in and not do that. I would have loved to have seen him, be that kind of anti-establishment. He certainly seems to have come in and kicked around some State Department people. He fired the entire 7th floor of them, and that was supposed to be a very, influential branch I mean, I've heard reports of the State Department where it basically sounds like people are just kind of sitting around not doing anything there right now because they've been so good at.
Where are those reports from? Because I'll see stuff from AP and WAPO, and I'm like, all right, I take it with a grain of salt. Like some rogue insider from the White House is saying it's in flux and there's chaos. Meanwhile, that is the circus, and we're about to go boots on the ground in Syria. We're about to start up with Iran. We're about to start up with North Korea. So we're falling into the circus, and we're supposed to be looking out for what's really happening. And it's crazy how they're using Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I got that report I quoted was from OPB, which is, kind of the Portland equivalent of NPR, which of course is certainly not immune to, propagandized news. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have a very active military soon, and I think it's a mistake though to view that as that huge of a departure from previous administrations. In fact, it's not a departure at all. I mean, so far,
it's just a continuation.
I consider
I can't think of a single structural difference between what's happening right now, at least on the surface, in terms of how it's affecting people. I don't see any difference between right now and when Obama and Bush were president.
I would argue only that Iran is a global economic world killer if they get into a war, because they can shut down the strait. They can capsize it with they can just sink their own ships and block the strait. And that's 25% of all oil. So if anybody's out there that's pissed off about the price you're paying per gallon, imagine a hike of, I don't know, 25% to start.
I mean, just to back up, I mean, DB, you kind of characterize Trump as a military guy and not a banking guy, but I mean, he's doing the same. He's filling the same positions with key banking positions from Goldman Sachs.
Well, just look who. The only thing I just can say is look where their money goes versus where the money used to be going. So you're seeing arms deals ramping up, which is hard to believe considering what we've been doing.
You mean Saudi Arabia thing?
Yeah. I mean, we're about to sign a ridiculous deal with them. It's something in the works right now that's north of 150 billion, which is just ridiculous. So we're going to be feeding them. They're going to fight our proxy in Yemen versus Iran. And then when we soften them up enough, we're going to go at them. And that's some scary shit.
I mean, that's still economic imperialism. I mean, it's just a different manifestation of it.
I agree, but the world runs on oil. So a 25% haircut to people around the world that depend on it to get their food, get around, get everything done. It's not a big deal if you're a millionaire. If you're a person on a shoestring budget, what do you now have to give up? I mean, they're already cutting and scalping the entire slew of public works in this country. They're going cashless in India. I mean, it's very obvious that they're about to forcibly transition the world to what they're going to call a post-oil scarcity scenario. But the truth is, we all know, we haven't needed oil for over 100 years, if not more. So it's a bullshit illusion by snake oil salesmen, and the world's full of morons, and we're trying to wake them up.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, so back to what you were talking about. Trump yesterday was meeting with the Saudi deputy crown prince, and presumably just hammering out, trade deals and arms deals and oil stuff. Who knows what they were talking about exactly, but we could guess.
We're gonna give him the F-35, dude. That's insane.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is, and this we reported on a few days back, is that Obama was Obama sold the Saudis a shitload of arms, right? A lot of arms, and we gave Obama a lot of trouble about his arms deals with Saudi Arabia, and he started to get flack from his own party a little bit on this, and even the more conservative elements the Republican Party were speaking out about this stuff, especially like, the Ron Paul type of people, Rand Paul type of people and those kind. Were speaking out about these arms deals and how these arms are, winding up. First of all, winding up officially being used by the Saudis in Yemen, which is just horrible. I mean, we reported that they're like bombing food systems over there. They're bombing out farms and grain storages and who knows what other kind of horrible things that the Saudis are doing right now in Yemen with the weapons that we're selling them. And secondly, and perhaps even more hypocritical when it comes to Trump, is the Saudis are also the ones that we all know are the ones arming ISIS. And there's individuals in Saudi Arabia that are funding ISIS, and so for Trump to come in saying that, first of all, he's going to protect this country, he's going to do this and that, he's going to defeat ISIS and stuff. None of that's legitimate if he continues arming and doing arms deals with Saudi Arabia, which seems like, and we know that is going to continue happening, and so that all that stuff is just, it's none of it's true. And, it's just going to be a matter of time. Hopefully sooner than later, his supporters start realizing, okay, look, the guy, he came in, he told us he was going to do all this stuff, but it looks like he's just more or less going to continue the status quo. I mean, he's continuing the arms deals with Saudi Arabia. He's putting Goldman Sachs in charge of the economy. Like, Trump is a firebrand kind of rhetorical anti-establishment guy. And that's great because just like Obama came in as an anti-establishment, anti-war candidate, and he absorbed all that rhetoric and all that energy. I mean, Trump got elected by a bunch of people that are very energized. I mean, you go look at the comments on our Facebook page whenever we post anything about Trump, and you'll see the amount of people that are still energized by Donald Trump and are passionate about him because he said a bunch of stuff that maybe made sense to people, right? And he has I think Trump has a legitimate movement the way that Obama had a very legitimate movement in the early days of 2008, 2009. But sooner or later, I think his supporters, like the euphoria from winning and all that, is going to wear off, and then they're going to start seeing it for what it is, hopefully. And they start seeing the arms deals with Saudi Arabia. They start seeing that we're basically funding the people who are funding ISIS, or arming the people who are funding ISIS. Sorry, and they see that we're still having this close relationship with foreign aid to Israel. Now, the people that support Trump, a lot of them are nationalists. They don't believe in foreign aid and stuff. And at least on that on that end of their ideology, I actually agree with them. I don't believe in foreign aid either. I don't think we should be giving Israel $38 billion or whatever it is that we're giving them now, when we have people in this country that are like in major need, and so as this foreign aid continues to various countries, including Israel, there's just so many things here that are inconsistent with what Trump's people claim to support and what Trump claims to be trying to do and what is actually happening. And that's the thing, dude. And this is like what you were saying, DB. Like, everybody is talking about, Rachel Maddow is going to come out with Trump's tax returns, and it comes out with tax returns from from 2005, and it's like, oh, here's what Donald Trump paid in taxes in 2005. It's like,
so ridiculous.
Who gives a shit? Like, who the F gives a shit? And everybody is like paying attention to that. This happened yesterday, right? This happened yesterday.
Yeah, like, to harken back to your point, Nick. Meanwhile, they're announcing the implosion of our economy. The raising of the Federal Reserve interest rate means that the dollar is losing value exponentially right now. It's affecting my industry. It's affecting any industry where people have to borrow more than they can afford, and that's going to just kill our economy, man. When people stop buying cars and stop buying houses, that kills the economy, because the only way that money gets recirculated is by people buying things they need. So if they can't even buy transportation and housing, we're in a depression, man.
And, the big problem here is that the government has been so involved in doling out low-interest loans for now for so long. I mean, this is what really got us into the 2008 crisis to begin with, right? And then they kind of they said they were going to fix it, but
Well,
now
it wasn't the interest rates. It was they were just giving credit to anybody.
yeah, it was just easy. It was
Yeah.
it was too damn easy, right?
And that was the bank's fault. I mean, here's the thing: when you're a bank and you get money for free, I think a lot of people that understand quantitative easing on a practical level know that a bank, you can open a bank officially if you have $1 million in physical cash, and then you're allowed to loan out 10 million. So you're allowed to loan out a 10-to-1 ratio legally, and the FDIC will still cover you. They'll still insure you.
Right. That's what they call fractional reserve banking, correct?
Right. And so what it did, there's many documentaries that go into it, and what it's done in effect is made the dollar have what value is there besides we'll come kill everybody in your country that says the dollar doesn't have value. That's the only dollar of the value now. Or sorry, the only value of the dollar.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the precious metal backing the US dollar is steel. And not as a commodity, as a weapon, unfortunately.
You mean depleted uranium.
And depleted uranium. So, you know, part of the big problem here, and this is a big criticism that you see from like the libertarian side of things, economically speaking, free markets, is that with the Federal Reserve dictating interest rates, it creates bubbles, right? It creates artificial supply of money where it doesn't really belong. And, you know, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to afford housing. What I'm saying is that the prices of housing are way too high right now because the government has been helping loan out money too cheaply. And this is it is a really complicated argument here to make. But basically, you know, the government is part of the reason why houses are so damn expensive. Or maybe, sorry, not the government. More accurately, I should say the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve isn't actually, you know, part of the government. But the Federal Reserve is part of the reason why houses are so damn expensive, man. If you look back at like our grandparents, people who bought houses like in the 60s or prior to that, housing was so damn cheap, dude. Like you could buy a nice, decent house for like $20,000 or less, or like $10,000, $15,000, depending on where you're at. I know when my grandparents first came to San Diego, the housing prices then for a decent house where you could fit a family of like 5 or 6 was like $30,000. This is, you know, back in the early 70s. So now those same houses are worth exponential, or so, you know, quote unquote, worth exponential rate of dollars. Like those same houses that they bought for like 30,000, they're now worth about 300,000. So they've gone up 10 times. And the there's no reason why these prices should have gone up that amount. We don't have 10 times the amount of people. Our economy is not 10 times stronger. Our, you know, like there isn't 10 times higher demand for houses. The main reason why the prices are so damn high is because they're loaning out money too easily so that anybody can almost get a loan, which keeps driving the prices higher and higher and higher. Like if it was hard for people to get loans, or they could only qualify for a loan that was like based on like a realistic percentage of their income, houses would be cheap right now, dude. Like you'd be able to buy, like, I don't know, like I know around the country there still is cheap housing. I'm amazed when I go to places outside of Southern California and I see the prices of property. They're like, to me, they're ridiculously cheap. But here in San Diego, like if you want a basic house, like a basic house, DB can vouch for me because I know you've actually bought property here in San Diego before. So you could vouch for this. If you want a basic house here in San Diego, you're going to have to pay at least $200,000 or more. And I'm telling you guys, like the houses are not worth that much. They're not that nice. There's nothing great about them. The land that you get with it is very small, if any at all. It's just, the prices are just insane.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I mean, part of me still wants to move back to San Diego, but man, the property there is just ridiculous.
It is, man. It's crazy. And the Federal Reserve has to do with a lot of this. So, I mean, DB, what do you think, what are we looking at in the next couple months? Because, they've announced that they want to try to get 3 interest rates, to raise the interest rates 3 times this year. I mean, what do you think are going to be the implications in the next 3-4 months with the economy? DB, you there, dude? Mike, I think he's muted up. No, we'll get him. We'll get him back on. I just think that the Federal Reserve needs a lot more attention and a lot more criticism, man. Like the Federal Reserve is not transparent at all. Like the people in Congress can't even get to it. And we all know Congress is not far from perfect, right? But the people in Congress can't even see what the Federal Reserve is up to. So the last time they got a partial audit was right after the 2008 financial crisis. There was the sentiment there so they could try to get a partial audit, and that was one of the things Ron Paul was working on back in those days. And so we don't really know what they're up to. And we basically get to... instead, we get fed Donald Trump's tweets and his beef with Snoop Dogg and shit, which, by the way, the main beef with Snoop Dogg here, the main problem here is that Trump is trying to silence free speech, which isn't being even talked about enough. But again, that's just part of the distraction going on here. We need to take a hard look at the Fed because they're setting up a bubble now that is ridiculous. And this also goes back to the issue of student loans and how the prices of college in the U.S. have gone up exponentially. I would say, I don't know, maybe they're probably similar to the prices of housing.
No, it's not. Dude, housing's gone up like 5 times. Student loans are like 30 times what they used to be.
Wow, dude. So it's even worse. Oh, man. So, yeah, I mean, again, the student loans go back to the Fed as well. The Federal Reserve gives out these super low interest loans to these banks or financial institutions that create student loans, and they loan them out to you at a much higher interest rate. But just these banks, by being so big, and being part of the Fed system. So now the other thing too is the Fed, since it runs semi-independent of the U.S. government, it's run by its own separate like board of directors, more or less. And all of these people, most of the people that run the Fed, they're also from Goldman Sachs. I mean, I think we're starting to see a little common thread here. The guy that runs the European Central Bank is tied to Goldman Sachs as well.
Hey Nick, remember when Manhattan had that blackout and the only building that had power was Goldman Sachs, and they had to admit they had their own nuclear reactor in the basement? That's how important they are.
I'd never heard of that before.
Yeah,
Wow.
There's pictures of it. The Goldman Sachs headquarters during a blackout in Manhattan, fully lit up. People were still expected to be at work. Actually, they're expected to sleep there.
It's what do they call it? A vampire squid?
Yeah, the vampire
they set up-
squid of the empire, yeah.
They set up tents around the nuclear reactor.
That's probably what they do, man. It gives them a power boost like Super Mario Brothers mushrooms.
Yeah, their eyes are like glowing green and shit.
Yeah, dude. So, Goldman Sachs is running the Fed. It's running Trump's financial policies. And meanwhile, we're listening to Rachel Maddow talk about Trump's tax returns from 2005 and Trump and Snoop Dogg going to war on Twitter. That is the problem here. Sure, it is problematic that Donald Trump is compelled to go fight with celebrities or rappers online on Twitter. That's problematic.
He's slamming Snoop Dogg, and now T.I. got involved, so now shit's on.
Yeah, dude. And so here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing.
What did he say? What did he say to Snoop Dogg?
He pretty much said, like, you're a little bitch for, saying you're going to pop me in the head in your video. And then little Bow Wow came to Snoop Dogg's defense. And then the kicker was T.I. T.I. was like, I'm going to sick my ex Tiny on you, bitch.
So here's the thing. Like, that is problematic for this country. Okay. Now, here's the other thing. First of all, the media companies, they love this stuff because this is the kind of Trump drama that gives them a lot of money. They get a lot of reviews because people, it's like reality. It really, what it is it's like reality TV had gotten kind of old. So now it's like this real reality TV type of thing where it's like Trump is the new profit maker for these media companies. And that's why, how many billions of dollars did they give him in free coverage during the presidential election? Like he got well over $1 billion in free media coverage because it makes him a lot of money.
Didn't Hillary spend like 1.2 billion officially, and Trump spent like 300 million, and then they were saying because he was so controversial, he got like 2 billion in free ads.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I'll try to pull up some audio clips, but the CEO of CBS, it's a guy by the name of Moonves, is his last name. I can't remember his first name, but there's some leaked audio that came out on The Intercept during the presidential primaries that was him, the CEO of CBS, talking about how Trump is great for business, and he was saying, like, just pump Trump, pump, keep putting that guy on TV because when we do, people watch it. And so when Trump goes to beef with Snoop Dogg and T.I. gets involved and, all this other stuff goes on, everybody's going on the TV on CNN and wanting to see what the hell is happening. At the same time, the Federal Reserve is basically doing what it's doing, and Goldman Sachs has taken over the monetary policy once again in this country, and the war machine marches on. I mean, have you seen any critical media coverage of what Trump has been doing militarily? We're now moving heavy artillery, heavy military equipment, including nuclear capabilities, into South Korea. We're putting a THAAD missile system in, which is a way to contain any kind of missile launch coming from an enemy. They've sent troops into Syria. They've sent 2,500 troops over to Kuwait.
Those drones in South Korea really worry me, Nick, because that means they're probably willing to test North Korea's surface-to-air missile system. Because who cares if a couple drones get shot down? Whatever.
Well, that's the whole point of having drones. You don't got to put your guys on the line. So yeah.
Exactly. So they're going to test it
and see what they're willing to do.
Yeah. They're going to see what the regime's willing to do if they want to come in and try to surgically hit them in their headquarters.
Yeah, and then another headline we covered on the anti-media, really good story by James Holbrooks, who's been covering our Asia beat basically, and we hired him just at the right time because as Trump comes in, the things are heating up over there in the South China Sea, the Korean Peninsula, Philippines, everywhere over there is in play right now. It's really, really dynamic situation. It's like quicksand over there, and things are moving really quickly. But here's the thing. We all know about Rachel Maddow last night. We all know about Trump's tax returns or lack of tax return. We all know about the Snoop Dogg beef. But where is the criticism of what in the hell is going on? I mean, he's drastically increased the militarization of the U.S. presence abroad, and this is something very, very concerning, man. I mean, China is not sitting around over there twiddling its thumbs just waiting for something to happen. China is reacting to what is going on already, and China is doing things that we don't even know about right now that is preparing to counter the moves that the U.S. is making.
We know enough, Nick, that they thought they needed $60 billion on paper more.
Yeah.
They're a little freaked out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. And the other thing too is I've noticed a beginning of a shift in ties between the U.S. and Russia. Now, it's not a conspiracy theory that Trump was more friendly towards Donald Trump. I'm definitely never disputed that. I think Russia definitely favored Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton for obvious reasons. Hillary was open talking about, we're going to put a no-fly zone in Syria.
Exactly.
We all kind of know what that meant. So I think Russia, did favor Donald Trump. I don't think Russia hacked into our election. I don't think that. I think that everything having to do with Russia being involved in manipulating our elections is way overblown. Of course, there are operations there. Every country has operations that are similar, but I don't think Russia was successfully able to manipulate our elections. But
who was Gorbachev? I mean, the wall dropped when we installed him through NGOs. So it's tit for tat, man. I mean, we're both superpowers. People think Russia's some piddly nation. They're really not. They have a massive amount of resources. It's just they're like any place else. They're a at this point they're a true oligarchy. We're still a plutocracy. We actually pretend we have a government. They don't even care over there.
Yeah, and so Russia definitely initially was warming its tensions up, warming ties with the United States. But I've noticed over the past week that it looks like Russia is basically back to square one. They're back to where they were with Obama, kind of, to where now Syria is still it's still kind of up in the air, at least parts of Syria. I read today that there were U.S. and Russian troops like very, very, very close to each other in Syria. I think they were like on opposite ends of the city. So these guys are now getting really close to each other,
and Russia goes absolutely ballistic when they suffer casualties because, as we've gone over many a time, World War II wiped them out, and they're super paranoid about losing any of their personnel. And when a Marine dies, they don't let his body stay there if they can help it, Nick, for the U.S. But when a Spetsnaz or whatever dies, I guess their response is to just napalm wherever that body is.
It's crazy, dude. And so I've definitely noticed a shift in Russian rhetoric. I think that they were initially kind of like happy about Trump. I don't know if it was because they saw him as incoherent or if they saw him as a guy that could sabotage the stuff that was going on or whatever. But it's clear that the deep state prevailed over Trump. If Trump really was getting in their way, he's not anymore. That's over. Trump is in line, and now they're just Trump is very beneficial, and this is the point I was trying to get to. Trump is beneficial for the powers that be because look at just like what we've been talking about. He's distracting everyone with this Twitter nonsense, and meanwhile the empire just rolls on. With Obama, he had to go around pretending like he was doing cool stuff. With Trump, all he's got to do is go on Twitter, insult Snoop Dogg or someone from Saturday Night Live or whatever, and then that's the news cycle for 3 days.
So you're saying that Obama was Sammy Davis Jr. and now we got Sinatra, but in his later phase when he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I mean, this guy's not cool anymore. The WWE guy, SM, always refers to that Trump of 10 years ago. That guy was cool because he wasn't running shit.
Oh, man. Yeah, dude. So this is the trap that we have to be aware of. I mean, that Rachel Maddow thing last night, I don't even know what to say about that. That was so
That was
dumb.
the death knell of MSNBC.
Just so dumb. It was such a waste of time, and everybody, even people who
He's getting a lot of blowback for it. That's for sure.
Most people who are definitely kind of at least slightly above the two-party fray. People who were like supporting of Bernie Sanders and maybe moved over more towards the Green Party after the election and stuff. Even people like that were kind of swept up by this. Oh my God, let's find out what Rachel Maddow has to say about Trump's tax returns. Who gives a shit about Trump's tax returns?
That was her BuzzFeed moment, wasn't it?
Oh, dude, yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
BuzzFeed News, Harvard just came out with a new guide to interpreting media, and they cited BuzzFeed as one of the, look, here's someone that can tell you who to trust in the media. They're citing BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed just came out with that Golden Gate bullshit. Like,
was Snopes on that list?
Yeah, Snopes was on it.
Dude, Snopes is compromised by hookers talking about prostitutes and fucking videotape.
Oh, dude, like, anyway, yeah. So yeah, they're putting BuzzFeed up there like it's a legit source. Of course, it's not. Let me pull back up on the homepage here. So here's the thing. Hopefully, you guys go to theantimedia.org, create an account, submit articles to us. I can't stress that enough. We need more article submissions. For one, so that you guys can get your news out there. We're gonna, as long as it's timely and relevant. And
hey Nick, can people do a translation of foreign news and send it in, like if they're the native speaker or whatever?
We don't have that feature yet, but that's one thing we want to like break into, is starting to get into some other languages. Because I think there's this idea, like people that have kind of started seeing through this grand scheme, they transcend all nations and languages and barriers. Like there's people that are awake to what's going on, and there's people that aren't. It doesn't matter what race, language, country you come from. There's people out there that want to change the status quo with revolutionary thinking, and there's people that don't. And that's why we need everybody's help to reach more people. So submit articles to our site. Let us know what needs to be covered. We'll put up the stories that you post. If we see the same story come up several times, we'll send it to our journalists to look at. And, we'll look deeper into it. So, this is an effort. It's a communal effort to help disseminate and aggregate the news. And I'm looking at the front page right now, and we're looking at the stuff that needs to be talked about. Oh, so another big news. So here's the thing. The news cycle has sped up like a lot, and so it's much harder. It's harder to stay on top of all this stuff because there's just so much shit happening all at once. Like we've already gone 40 minutes talking about relevant news items, and we haven't even got to what is probably the biggest story of the day, just because, if we're just talking about for today, the biggest story is that a judge stepped in and stopped Trump's refugee ban again. And this is semi-breaking news, came out just a couple hours ago. A judge from Hawaii stepped in and said, okay, we're not going to allow Trump to implement this travel ban. And of course, everyone's got an opinion on that. And you guys know I come from the opinion of don't create refugees if you aren't willing to deal with them.
But then we can't have empire, Nick. Damn it.
Exactly, right? It's a pretty simple philosophy, right? If you don't want refugees in your country, don't bomb their country.
Newsflash, your life would be 1,000,000 times better if we weren't an empire and we were the United States of America and that was it. Because your money and my money, half of it, or actually 60% of it, goes right to 1,800 military bases, 30,000 aircraft, and the maintenance of 2 million people that work just to kill other people around the world. And we don't get the benefit. It's not like it was in Rome, where Rome was paved in gold. We have Flint, we have Detroit, we have New Orleans, which is basically falling underwater right now. We have Miami, which is doing the same. We don't have money to dredge them out. The climate's changing, and we have no money to do anything with infrastructure. Why? because that's all going overseas to the military.
Yeah, exactly. And it brings us right back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, which was the Federal Reserve. And so here's one thing that people need to know about that is going on. And this is why the banking industry is so important here, and why we need to take a closer look at the banking industry. We talked about home loans. We talked about a little bit about student loans. But how is the government funding all of this empire stuff? So on the anti-media just yesterday, we had a story about how the U.S. is about to reach the 20 trillion mark in debt. So we're looking at a lot. And of course, Trump just increased the military budget by about 10%, which is, right around $60 billion. So it brings us to this question of like, okay, well, where's the money come from? How are these guys that far in debt? Well, there's several different sources. Of course, China owns a bunch of the debt. Japan, several countries own a bunch of the debt. But here's one section that isn't talked about nearly enough. The Federal Reserve prints out the money, right? They give it over to these banks at like very, very low interest rates. And then the banks loan it to the U.S. government at a higher interest rate. Now, whose social security number is used as a guarantee of that loan's repayment? Yours. So basically what's going on here, just to break it down in the layman's terms, the Federal Reserve prints money of paper, which is backed by nothing more than your belief in its value and maybe tanks and bombs.
And your life insurance policy, Nick, remember.
But nothing of intrinsic value other than maybe what you can scrap a tank for. But so, yeah, basically the Fed's printing out this money on paper that's more or less worthless. It's giving it to these banks at almost zero interest. And then the banks give it to the government at a raised interest rate. And then the government promises that you are going to pay back that loan through your paycheck. So that's how these guys, that's one major way that they're funding this 20 trillion in debt. And of course, a huge, huge chunk of it goes right into the military, which goes into propping up our empire all around the world. So like as complicated and convoluted as this stuff is, and as mysterious that it is, and how they try to hide everything they do, it's actually pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Some people who make up a banking cabal create money out of thin air, give it to the government, let them create an empire with it, and then make you pay for it. And this is the thing. This is the biggest story of our time. This really is.
And it is backed by real physical gold, but that gold belongs to China, ironically, that we took it for safekeeping prior to Manchuria being taken over by Japan. This was sometime around 1933 era, and it was, basically brought over by the ton by steamship to the U.S. for safekeeping, supposedly in Fort Knox in Kentucky, in the middle of the landmass of the U.S. where it could never be touched. And that's probably empty because nobody's been in there since the 90s. And I'm sure that's empty. And you know what I mean? Like, where is this physical gold? A lot of people say it maybe in the Philippines. And that's why Duterte, when he found that out, decided to become a big badass, because now he's holding it for safekeeping so that China couldn't invade us to get the gold. Now it's in the Philippines or something like that. But there's something holding us down physically, and we don't know what it is. This is why the flux of the market's coming, and this whole process of Nasara. We have to go back to physically backed gold, where we can go into a bank with bills and get gold, take that gold to another country and get bills. That way we don't lose money on the exchange, because that's the main problem right now. Money is not fluid. It's controlled by a monopoly.
The money changers, right? This is a biblical problem. This problem dates back thousands of years, right? We're still fighting off that same parasite, and that's all it is. The banking class, the people that we're talking about, Goldman Sachs, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, the Bank of Japan, all these other banks that are involved, they're just parasites. And of course, you can't forget the old school, Rothschilds and all the people that are involved in the banking industry. They're all a bunch of parasites that jack us for our money. They create bubbles, and they create inequality. And they allow for a system to exist that makes several people extremely, extremely rich and the rest of us relatively poor. So this to me seems to be like an eternal struggle, and I don't use that term very often. But the struggle against the parasitic banking class is eternal. And we've been fighting it for as long as we've been gathering people into civilizations. I think we've been fighting with this in one way or another. There's always some type of banking system or some type of system that is involved in delegating property and that kind of thing. And they always take advantage of people. They call in favors. They do favors for their friends. They can be blackmailed easily. They can be controlled. They can control people. They can blackmail people. So like this is a struggle that we sooner or later have to solve, because it hasn't been solved. It's been over 2,000 years since we've identified the problem, and it hasn't been solved yet. I mean, Jake, I want to bring you into this, dude, because I know you've got all kinds of opinions on the banking system and just the parasitic class that we've been trying to deal with for, it seems like, forever. What do you think we can do to not only recognize the problem, but actually start defeating it?
Yeah, I think, DB, did we talk about this last night? We talked about something similar to it, but
it's always back to just getting off grid, man. That's what it's always coming back to.
When you get to the bigger issue, there's always a kind of, the moral arc to me is always about, can humanity evolve? And, for me, I personally think, it's going to take, we're going to need a little Kickstarter, technological Kickstarter. I think last night me and DB were talking about, we need some kind of neurocognitive enhancements so that people can start to think outside of their constraints and whatnot. Because right now people are so held into place by these socializing structures and propaganda and controlled opposition. They're so swept up in it, and people are so wrapped up in their own lives. It's hard enough to think macroscopically outside of your own life, much less to come up with a solution and then to devote your life toward, living agoristically or becoming part of some anarchistic cell that's off the grid. I mean, for most people, that's incomprehensible. I mean, I think about this stuff a lot, and even for me, I find it. I mean, it's hard enough for me to survive a week at Burning Man with just bringing it up.
But you don't have to. You don't have to give up a modern life with creature comforts and have that communal, 30 miles away from a major urban center, so that when shit pops off, and it will, you don't go in that first die-off. You have a chance to live. I'm sorry, man, but when you're in a major city, if you get stuck, you're not going to survive. That's just the way it goes, because we're not in a position like Russia and China, especially Russia, where people in the countryside grow food. Nobody here grows food. Nobody has a dacha. And in China, the way that it's controlled so completely by the central government, there's no way they'll ever let the society break down. So that's not a position of theirs. But in the U.S., if the economy collapses, the elites are just going to all leave and go to Bolivia or wherever the hell they bought all that land down there, and they don't give a shit, and they're just going to escape.
Well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe at that point we can take our country back once the elites leave.
Kick the parasites out. Once they get tired of taking advantage of us, they kick them out. But I think they're going to be heading towards. I think some of them, some of these guys like Peter Thiel, which ironically was a early financial backer of Donald Trump, has applied for dual citizenship in New Zealand. Over on the antimedia.org, we reported today that there's been a 70% spike in Americans applying for New Zealand citizenship. So pretty interesting dynamic, something to keep an eye on there. But I think that these guys are going to be going. It all depends on how this automation stuff plays out. Jake, I don't know if you saw that today, but that guy Kurzweil was predicting that the singularity moment would take place by 2025. I think he said
2025.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. Just today, I think today at South by Southwest, he gave a speech, and that's what he said. So singularity, Jake,
that's like 2 decades ahead from his normal prediction.
Jake, can you tell us real quick what singularity is? Because I don't even really grasp it fully.
I mean, the singularity is just when our computers are smarter than us, and they advance so quickly that they have basically control over society, because things are advancing so quickly that humans can't really fully keep up with it. So it's really quite literally just a point at which humans can't comprehend what's going on. I mean, kind of like the singularity of a black hole. You can't look past that singularity of a black hole and see what's inside of it. And most people think it'll be a technological singularity that will involve very advanced levels of biotechnology, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence. But for him to be saying that, he must. I mean, and he's working on the Google DeepMind, so he must have some inside track on the advancement.
Eagle Eye.
I was just looking at an article about how DeepMind. Where is that thing? That they just developed some new program where the artificial intelligence will be learning like humans. I don't know what. I can't.
Every AI that's like come to any kind of cognizance ends up seeing us as some kind of zoo pet and wants to put us away and inhabit our body.
Sorry, guys. 2025, but I'm looking at it now. It's actually 2029. But still, that's 12 years away.
That's crazy.
I don't. You have to wonder how the parasitic class is going to deal with the singularity thing. I mean, the obvious thing that's going to happen is like right now, this guy Ray Kurzweil, which he's considered a futurist, right? He's a philosopher when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Pretty well respected too.
This guy is like on the cutting edge of this artificial intelligence stuff, and he works for Google, and so the obvious thing to look at and see is that Google and Amazon and maybe Facebook, several other big companies are going to try to own up and partially monopolize on this technology and deploy it for the use of creating profits for their shareholders. Their shareholders are made up of a lot of different people. A lot of them have to do with the banking industry, the parasitic industry that we've been talking about. So it is going to be interesting to see how these parasite class people deal with the robot revolution, the artificial intelligence revolution, and will they monopolize on it, or will open source crack everything and beat all of them and make them all unprofitable? I mean,
how can they stop open source except to create some kind of a chaotic situation?
Well, the same question must be asked: is why do people use Windows and Apple products, and why don't they use Linux? Right?
Well, because I guess it's just convenience.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing, dude, is that open source. I think open source can prevail, but it's a different fight. It's a whole different fight. So that's one thing to keep an eye on too, guys. Everybody, futurism, the singularity. These are some interesting topics to keep an eye on that are going to be very important. Anti-Media Radio, 5 days a week.
Go and let it blow. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.